Not gonna lie, I'm a little bit nervous about today's episode. I'm talking to the deputy head of a school about why school is stressful for us. Now, this may not always be the case, but sometimes it is. Are schools providing the right ecosystem for teenagers to flourish rather than flounder? Some people just don't seem to be made for the school system. So what should be done about these few outliers? Should the system accommodate them along with those who fit neatly into the class? Let's take this matter to the principal's office. Ms. Sindu Suneel, Deputy Head of KC High, a Cambridge IGCSE and IB international school in India, who's focused on curriculum and teacher development, spends a major part of her day engaging with students, parents, and teachers apart from being an IGCSE level economics teacher. So thank you for joining us today.
Nice talking to you, Aryan. And I also teach IB, by the way.
Got it. I'll make a note of that. So I'd like to ask, why is it that life skills in school, like grit, resilience, how to handle failures, are generally limited to one assembly session per school year, or maybe an audio-visual presentation every now and again? Should these skills not play a more integral part of the school curriculum?
Absolutely. And I personally feel it's not a one-time thing. It's something that should run throughout in a learner's school day as well as home. So I'm not sure post-COVID if most schools have sort of gone back to the traditional system where they've just been doing life skills as a period and where they teach, grit and resilience. But I think post-COVID, lots of schools have honestly started thinking a lot more about how to teach children to cope, give them coping skills and all of that. So I may not necessarily generalize and say that all schools are not doing it because I think they have realized the importance. And when we say grit and resilience, for example, the school where I work, we usually, it's 2 semesters in an academic year, right? And we typically work around themes. So the themes for this academic year include deliberate practice, okay, and mastery at every step. So which means deliberate practice is all about repetition. It's all about, having a focus. It's all about grit. It's about making a decision and trying to stick to it, making a plan and all of those things. So I think something like that cannot be taught as a one-time thing, and it needs to run throughout in a typical day. I think you have to give opportunities and experiences so that you're observing children as a teacher, I'm saying, as an administrator. I think as long as you're giving enough opportunities for them to display their potential and show that they can do it, I think that's the best way, because you do have role models in every school, for example. And this is like, for example, swimmers, chess players at the state level, at the national level, and all of that, right? So they do show, you can see that, because they're trying to balance so many things. They're trying to balance academic work. They're trying to balance all their, practice sessions. They're trying to keep up their grades. So I think that takes a lot of grit and resilience, don't you think? And I agree with you, Aryan. I don't think it can be just taught in one period or just talked about in one assembly, and we don't expect miracles to happen.
Absolutely, yeah. So in your opinion, do you think schools are playing, or do you think they should play a more active role in helping teenagers with their mental health?
Without a doubt. I don't think any educator today will give you no as an answer. Absolutely. The question is how do they do it? I think it's important for a school to have professionals like counselors to deal with these things, because in a school system you'll have different stakeholders. So it's very important to have professionals who have studied it, because there's a lot of science, right, in terms of how the teenage brain works. So that would be the best approach in terms of how they can make a plan for the mental well-being of all students, whether they're teenagers or not teenagers. And secondly, I think most importantly is to get all stakeholders on the same page. So while whatever spoken in the room of a counselor is mostly confidential, but sometimes when intervention is required, the parents have to be on board. So it's very, very important to keep the parents in the loop. So, and for everybody, to have a program to help the mental well-being of a particular child.
Yeah, that's absolutely, yeah, that's true.
What do you think the role of parents should be, Aryan?
The role of parents, in my opinion, should be supporters. You know, it shouldn't be like an overbearing presence, but rather they should just be there to support the child. Meaning, like, let's say the child's struggling in a subject, that doesn't mean the parent should start doing the work for the student. The parent should be there to support the student, should maybe help the student out, but they shouldn't be an overbearing presence on the student's life. Otherwise the student won't ever become truly independent.
Do you think as a teenager, parents should be better listeners?
Definitely. In fact, I'd say that once the child's a teenager, their role should be more focused on listening rather than, hands-on doing. Of course, this is, different from, child to child, but by and large, in my opinion, I think that once a child has become a teenager, a lot less, micromanaging or, managing in general needs to occur.
Right, because I think looking at it from a teenager's perspective, they like to be left alone. Right? So there is this tussle. I do see that because parents want the best for their kids. So when they see their kids gaming for hours, and not sort of working on what they think they should be working on and all of that, we do see a lot of tussle. And then the middle ground, I think they can. It's only when they have communication channels open, that's when I think they can they can find a middle ground, which oftentimes doesn't happen. It's the teenager's my way or highway is in the room or by himself or herself. The parents are like, no, you must do A, B, C. So I think it's important for as long as I think in the home front the communication channels are open, I think you'll have lesser of a problem.
Now, there are instances of teachers shaming students for academic performance, and even sometimes not even their academic performance. Sometimes they shame the students' lifestyles and other personal matters that don't actually pertain to schoolwork. So, and these are reported in many schools across the world. How do you think teachers can be more sensitive towards adolescents?
I think it comes down to the culture of an institution, right? Everything comes down to the culture of a particular institution. So I'll tell you a little bit about the school I went to. It was very traditional. I'm sure there are still schools like that exist today. So it was the teachers. It was the teachers who spoke all the time, right? So we didn't have, it was a class of 45 kids. And we never even thought of asking a question, ever, right? And we all wrote the same things. Our books were like duplicates. Right?
Carbon copies, essentially.
Carbon copies, absolutely. So even if you looked at a bulletin board like that many years ago, everything would be the same. If an artwork is if you took a class, all the artworks would be identical practically. But and then it was top down. So you had a certain behavior displayed by, let's say, the principal, which was autocratic, and that would be followed by the teachers as well. right? So it was very, very autocratic in that sense. But if you had an institution where they believed in certain things, then that would become the culture of the school, wouldn't it?
Mm.
So I think it comes down to the culture of that particular school. I mean, even I heard it from someone yesterday about this child. The parent had told, this is another school, so it was a colleague of mine whose child goes to another school, and she was called by the principal because they had a raid. Her son is in grade 12. They had a raid of all the bags of the children, and they found a phone in his bag. And she had apparently told the school that, hey, there are times that he travels by himself, so he needs to have a phone. And so it was taken away, and then she was called. And then the principal was like, look, I've even taken away teacher phones, right? So that's the culture of that school. So it all comes down to what is the kind of school that a child goes to. So in a school like that, it's very possible that the teachers are allowed. It's okay for them to shame because they don't know anything more than that. And I don't know if it's particularly their fault because the tone has not, and the expectations have not, or the vision is very, very different.
Right. So you're saying, like, of course, this is an institution to institution thing, but you're saying it depends more so on the culture of the school than anything else.
Absolutely, because I'll tell you, if an institution expects the teacher to use kind language, then any teacher that walks into that school will have to use kind language, right? So there is an expectation that is set by the institution. But there is no such expectation, and then you're allowed to speak to a student in a way that's derogatory, that embarrasses the student, that shames the student, and it's okay to do it. I mean, you're the voices of the future, and you have so many avenues by which you can express yourselves, right? Social media. And that's what you're using right now. I see a lot. How do you know that so many things are happening globally? It's because students have started voicing this out loud, right? So I think more of that will create an awareness, and hopefully it will die down in a few years.
Yeah. And last thing here is, what would you say are the most appropriate ways to report teenage mental health issues to a parent? And would you say these issues always have to be reported?
This is like from the school, if we see something?
From the school, yes. So
yes.
You mentioned earlier there's
yes.
the professionals at
yes.
the school. If someone reports something to professional.
Absolutely. It has to be reported. I wouldn't use the word reported as such, but yes, we have to talk to the parent, and because they're not in school 24 hours. Remember that they are also at home, and some of these issues are stemming from home sometimes. So it's important to keep the parent in the loop, because the parent is a primary caregiver, right? And they love their children. They want the best for their child. Yeah. So I'm sure that they'll want to do the best to ensure the child is safe, to ensure that the child is happy at the end of the day. So if you get the parents on board by not, again, shaming this, like this whole, it's not frowned upon, and it's communicated in a way to say that, hey, we're here for your child. We're here to support your child.
Now, can you tell us a bit about popularity and peer pressure and things like that in school from a teacher's perspective?
Oh, I think it's very important to them. They might be in denial, some of them, but it's how it is, especially with social media, with Instagram, the number of likes they get, and all of that. It is important to them. So I think it's, as teachers, as educators, as parents, it's important for us to sensitize them and tell them, look, whatever you put out there, you're leaving a digital footprint. It's for life. So you need to think about it. And anytime we see or something is reported about in terms of it being inappropriate, then we do engage the counselors, right? But again, it comes down to education, Aryan. It comes down to sensitizing them
Right.
in terms of just what's important.
Right. Yeah. But wouldn't you say that some teenagers would see this as policing?
Some would, definitely, because every teenager's personality is different. They might look at it as policing because that's how the teenage brain works. You know, it's a rebel in them. So I think with parents and educators and counselors, I think if we work together, it may not happen overnight, but I think with time, things can change.
I think that's it. Yeah. That was very insightful and a lot less scary than I thought it would be. Thank you so much for being here.